I knew something was wrong as soon as the disc landed in front of me. It's not the food itself. Not exactly. That's the way Margaret Monroe spoke, her voice as smooth as old whiskey, so expert. This is just for you, Jessica, she cooed, brushing invisible dust from the porcelain rim. A little taste of the South. My own recipe. The salad sparkles under the soft chandelier light in the Monroe family dining room. Crisp romaine lettuce, candied pecans, blood orange segments, and sliced almonds are arranged like a still life. So perfect. Too intentional. And the sauce. A citrusy yellow sauce that was a little too sparkly. David didn't notice. My husband had a long conversation with his father, talking about interest rates and real estate in Charleston. Across from me, Vanessa was taking a photo of her plate to post on Instagram, as if this meal were something sacred. Margaret looked at me with that cautious, calm smile. It's a smile that gives me goosebumps. We have been living in Charleston for 3 months. David's promotion temporarily brought us back to his childhood home, or so I was told. Margaret insisted that we stay at the mansion until we found something suitable, which in Margaret's words meant something I approved of. The house was a Southern Gothic dream, pillars, ivy creaking floorboards, and a grandmother clock that seemed to judge me every time I passed it. Margaret runs the house like a greasy church service, complete with hymns of passive praise and sermons on tradition. She called me darling, the same way people call a spider on the wall harmless, and now she made me a salad. I forced a smile. It looks beautiful, Margaret, thank you. She tilted her head. Of course, baby. You deserve something special. My stomach turned. There was something off about the scent rising from the plate. There's a chemical underneath the citrus, something sharp, almost metallic. Not enough to be clear. Just enough to spark every instinct I have. My mother used to say, when your gut speaks honey, you better listen. Vanessa was halfway through her service, babbling about her latest painting exhibition. She always ate quickly, as if she was proving she could enjoy life better than anyone else in the room. She didn't seem to notice anything out of the ordinary. But Margaret hasn't cleared Vanessa's plate yet, just mine. I put down my fork and reached for my napkin, dabbing at my mouth as if I had just adjusted. My hands shook slightly as I reached across my plate, pushing it forward just an inch. Sufficient. Oh, I said softly. This chair wobbles a bit. In one smooth motion, I moved the plates. Vanessa, too busy praising herself, didn't notice. Margaret did. I saw it in her eyes, a flicker, her jaw clenching for a moment, but she didn't say anything. I smiled back at her. Sweet, motionless. I picked up the new plate, Vanessa's old one, and took a bite. Sharp, it's fascinating, bright, normal. Across the table, Vanessa was polishing her last swapped plate. She leaned back, satisfied, pouring herself a second glass of wine. For a moment, everything was as it always was in the Monroe household, perfectly organized, glossy like a magazine. Then it started. Vanessa blinked, rubbed her forehead, smile. Ugh, maybe the wine was stronger than I thought. She took another sip, then frowned. Margaret continued eating, occasionally glancing in Vanessa's direction. Her fork barely touched her lips. I observed her more closely than her daughter. Vanessa began to fidget in her chair. Her shoulders were tense. Her eyes looked at me and then left. A cough. 1 second more violence. David finally realized. Are you okay, V? Vanessa waved at him. It's just dried spices or something. Margaret slowly put down her glass of wine. You look a little pale, honey. Would you like some water? Vanessa nodded quickly, her hands shaking. She grabbed her glass but barely brought it to her lips before standing up unsteadily. Sorry, she muttered. I just need a moment. She left the table, her steps hesitant. Silence covered the room like a velvet curtain. I sipped my wine and met Margaret's eyes. "The salad is delicious," I said softly. "You must share the recipe." Her smile stiffened. "Of course, I'll be happy." But in her eyes, something was clear. A thread has been pulled. Margaret Monroe was many things, but carelessness was not one of them. This, whatever this is intentional. And now, it was her turn to explain. David stood up. "I'll go check on her." Margaret reached out her hand, barely touching his sleeve. "Let her breathe. She's fine." He hesitated, seated. The meal continued in unusual silence, broken only by the distant sound of retching. Margaret never wavered. After dessert, after coffee, after David and his father disappeared into the study, Margaret and I remained. She leaned forward slightly. "You're a smart girl, Jessica." I met her eyes. "I'm a woman who doesn't eat anything she prepares herself." For the first time, her lips curled into something sincere. Not a single smile, not necessarily. She stood up. "Good night." I still sat, arms crossed, eyes looking at the empty plate in front of me. It's still shimmering. The war has begun, and Margaret fired the first shot. It's just... She failed. But next time, she won't intend to scare me anymore. She will aim to destroy me. And I had to decide whether I was going to run or learn to aim again. Tonight, I chose the latter. Because the formula she never gave me became the formula that enlightened her. One ingredient at a time. The morning after the salad incident, the Monroe house became colder. Not by temperature late spring, sunlight filtered through the plantation shutters, warming the hardwood floors. But there was a thick and deliberate silence in the air, like a show waiting for a signal. I moved quietly down the hallway, the hem of my robe brushing against Margaret's favorite antique rug. I can still smell last night's citrus vinaigrette stress and the faint smell of bleach from the guest bathroom where Vanessa spent most of the evening. I found David in the kitchen, fully dressed with a perfect tie, sipping black coffee with his usual composure. "Hey," he said, as if nothing had happened. "Did you sleep okay?" Like a dream, I lied. He handed me a cup without looking me in the eye. "Mom is making breakfast. Said she wanted to talk to everyone." I took a sip, bitter, burned. "How is Vanessa?" He shrugged. "Still haven't seen her. Maybe she fell asleep." Overslept on what, David? I didn't say that. I don't have to. Instead, I followed him into the dining room. Different meals, same battlefields. Margaret was there wearing a cream shirt and pearls and crimson lipstick. She stood at the head of the table directing the maids as if giving general orders. "Jessica, good morning," she said with the warmth of a well-rehearsed line. "Good morning, Margaret." Vanessa entered last. Her face was pale, and she wore sunglasses indoors. Her silence screams louder than words. She took her seat without saying hello. Margaret patted her hand. "Now that we're all here, I thought it would be fun to have a little family meeting. Yesterday was, well, eventful." She smiled at Vanessa, who flinched, almost imperceptibly. "I wanted to make sure we were all feeling okay," Margaret continued. "There were no hard feelings at all. After all, we are a family." Family. She used that word as a shield. I reached for the orange juice and caught Vanessa staring at me. "What's wrong, Vanessa?" I asked. She blinked slowly, her voice hoarse. "Did you feel tired last night?" The room held its breath. "No," I said. "I feel fine." Vanessa's lips pursed. Her hand fiddled with the napkin placed on her lap. Margaret gently interjected. "Maybe there's just something wrong with you, honey. These things happen." "I've never reacted like that to food in my life," Vanessa said quietly. David looked between us confused. You think there's something in the salad I don't answer? I watched Margaret, who did not flinch. Are you accusing someone of something? She asked, her tone filled with gentle contempt. I'm just saying, Vanessa said, looking straight at me. I didn't make that salad. You made that, Mom? And Jessica? You don't eat yours. I did, I said calmly. You must have been too busy talking about your gallery to notice? Vanessa remained silent, but her suspicions lingered in the air like perfume. Margaret sighed softly. Don't start turning this into some kind of witch hunt. We're here to support each other. She turned to Vanessa, her voice sweet. Maybe you're just tired, honey. It's been a long day. Vanessa nodded, but I saw it, a crack forming behind her designer sunglasses. Suspect. Not in me, not yet. But in her mother. That afternoon, I found Vanessa alone on the back porch, sitting on the swing with a blanket wrapped around her legs. She looked up as I walked out, her expression unpredictable. Mind if I join you? I asked. She shrugged. It's your home too. Right. I sat next to her, the swing creaking under our weight. The wind is so warm. Peace. If there weren't a storm swirling beneath the water's surface. You look rough this morning, I said. Vanessa giggled. Yeah. That salad is really different. We sat in silence for a while. Then she said without looking at me. Did you change the plate? I turned to her. What do you think? She shook her head. I don't know what to think. Another pause. Then her voice lowered. I always thought I was the most popular. She said it not with pride, but with pain. I don't talk. I let her handle it herself. All my life, I followed her rules. I went to the right schools, dated the right men, threw the right parties. I never said no to her. Her voice broke, and last night she looked at me sick and did nothing. I nodded slowly. I don't think it's about you. She turned around. Sorry. I think it's about me. You're collateral damage. The swing creaked again. She looked down at her hands. Then why didn't you say anything? Because no one believes the daughter-in-law. She flinched, and I saw it land. It's true. The years she had stood by Margaret's side, never realizing the cost. She stared at the garden, silent. Then gently, if there is proof, I will leave this house and never come back. I stood up and brushed off my dress. Then maybe you should start looking. That evening, I found her in the library flipping through photo albums and cookbooks. She didn't say a word when I walked in, but she didn't stop me from sitting next to her. It's a start. Margaret may have built the house, but Vanessa knows where the foundation is cracked. And now perhaps she's ready to help me take it down. The next morning, the Monroe house was still sunny, but none of us felt warm. It wasn't because of the weather. The late spring sunlight still filtered through the wooden plantation doors like every day. But the air in the house, it was thick. A strangely cold silence, as if every sound was waiting for someone to signal. I walked down the hallway, lightly brushing the antique carpets that my mother-in-law, Margaret, used to dry clean herself every month. The bitter taste of last night still lingers in my mouth. Balsamic vinegar, a strange smell in the salad, and the smell of bleach, which Vanessa left behind after vomiting in the guest bathroom. David is in the kitchen wearing a neat shirt and tie. The cup of coffee in his hand was as if last night had never happened. Can you sleep? He asked, his voice light, as if he was trying to avoid something. Delicious, like a dream, I lied. Mom is preparing breakfast. Said she wanted to talk to the whole family. I nodded, taking the cup of coffee from him. Bitter. That's right. Margaret's coffee never has sugar or cream. How is Vanessa? I asked. David shrugged. Probably still sleeping, must have been tired yesterday. What are you tired of, David? I wanted to ask, but kept quiet. He is not ready to hear the truth. Not yet. Breakfast that day was still on a long, French-style oak table. Still a crystal chandelier. But everyone knows this meal is not for eating. This is a show. And Margaret is the director. She wore a cream-colored blouse and a pearl necklace. Lips as red as blood, always impeccable, as if ready to appear on the cover of Southern Living magazine. Vanessa was the last to enter. Wear sunglasses, don't say a word. She sat down like someone who had just gone through hell and had not yet returned. Now that everyone is present? Margaret spoke up, clapping her hands lightly as a signal. I think the whole family should have a little chat. Yesterday was such a memorable night. She smiled at Vanessa, the smile of someone who had just escaped from a crime without leaving a trace. How are you? I asked, looking at Vanessa. She was silent, then slowly raised his voice hoarsely. Did you eat the salad last night? I smirked. I did. You were probably busy talking about the painting exhibition at that time. Vanessa looked at me, eyes behind sunglasses, but I can feel it doubt, painful. Do you think someone put something in the food? David interjected, looking around. Margaret laughed lightly. Dear David, don't talk nonsense. She's just tired. It's probably because of the heat. I've never had anything like that, Vanessa said, clutching her napkin. No one responded. I looked at Margaret. She didn't blink. No response. But I see Vanessa has started asking questions. It's not about me. It's about my mother. That afternoon I found Vanessa on the back porch. She sat alone in a rocking chair, a blanket covering her legs as if hiding from the world. Can I sit together? I asked. She nodded slightly. We sat in silence. Only the sound of light wind. Then she spoke. Do you want to change plates? I didn't answer right away. What do you think? Vanessa sighed. I don't know what to think. Then, after a long while, she said as soft as a breeze, I always thought I was the favorite child. Not a word of pride. It's the hurt. I never said no to my mother. I studied according to expectations, loved the person she chose, did everything she wanted. Yet yesterday, she just sat and watched me collapse. I nodded. I don't think it's about you. She turned around, surprised. What do you mean? I think the target is me. You're just the one on the receiving end. She stiffened. Then why didn't you say anything? I looked straight into her eyes. Who will believe it because of the daughter-in-law? She sat still. But I know for the first time she began to look at her mother with different eyes. Do you have proof? She asked, whispering. No. But if you want, we will find it. That night, I saw her for the first time in the library, flipping through each album, each of Margaret's recipe books. She didn't look at me. But don't chase me away either. Something is changing. I knew Margaret wouldn't sit still for long. Women like her don't know how to back down. They calculate and cower just to counterattack stronger. But when I woke up the next morning, to my surprise, the house was quiet, as if no toxic dinner had ever happened. No one mentioned Vanessa. No one talked about how she almost collapsed at the dinner table. And Margaret, she seemed to return to her familiar role, the perfect mother-in-law, busy preparing for a garden party to celebrate Charles's birthday on the weekend. I walked down to the kitchen, where the smell of waffles and maple syrup was wafting through. Vanessa was there, sitting at the kitchen island, stirring coffee. Her eyes were still dark, but were no longer hidden behind sunglasses. I gently pulled the chair next to her. "Are you better?" She nodded, but still didn't look at me. "My body is better, but my mind is still a mess." I placed my hand on the counter, trying to keep my voice calm. "Do you want to talk about last night?" She took a sip of coffee, then stared at me. "If you knew, why didn't you say anything?" I looked straight into her eyes. "Because I don't have proof, and because if I said it, then you wouldn't believe it. I still believe her." Vanessa did not respond. But her silence was different. No more avoidance. It was a wordless recognition. Margaret appeared a few minutes later, wearing an ivory floral dress, holding a clipboard to write down the guest list. "Ah, my dear children," she beamed. "This Saturday is Charles's father's birthday. We'll have a party in the yard. Vanessa, can you help me choose the menu?" Vanessa looked up. "It's up to you, Mom. I think you always know what you want." Margaret's smile faded, but she still maintained her usual elegance. "Jessica, can you help me check the flower decorations? Our house needs to be perfect. The press will also come." "Yes," I nodded. "I will prepare carefully." We all played our roles like three women in a stereotypical family play. But Vanessa's eyes were different. She was slowly seeing the truth clearly, and I knew now was the time to act. I met Caroline, a middle-aged maid, who had worked for the Monroe family for nearly 10 years. She is the only person in this house who is not afraid of Margaret, or at least is sane enough to hide that fear. "Miss Caroline," I called softly as she folded towels in the laundry room. "I need to talk privately." She raised her head, her eyes slightly wary. "What's the matter, Miss Jessica?" I looked around, then lowered my voice. "That night, the salad that Aunt Margaret gave me, there was something wrong with it. Do you know who prepared that plate?" Caroline hesitated. Then she slowly put the towel down. "I didn't bring it out directly, but I saw her standing in the kitchen for a long time, telling no one to come in while she added the final seasoning. After that, there was only one plate set aside." "My plate," I whispered. She nodded, "But Ms. Vivian ate it." I clenched my fists. "If I need help, can you stand by my side?" Caroline was silent for a moment, then gently said, "Miss Margaret is a powerful person, but you are a kind person. I always choose to be on the side of kind people." That afternoon, I talked to David. He had just returned from San Francisco on business. "What's going on at home?" he asked, pouring water into a glass. "Vanessa looks like she's seen a ghost." I sighed. "I don't know what to say to make you believe it." David frowned. "Jessica, you're making me worry." I looked straight into his eyes. "I think your mother tried to hurt me." He put down the glass. "Jessica, what are you talking about?" "Somehow, she put something in your salad plate. You switched plates with Vanessa. And I saw what happened." David took a step back, as if he had been hit in the chest. "Are you accusing my mother?" "It's not an accusation. I'm telling the truth." He looked at me for a long time. Then spoke slowly. "Do you have proof?" I shook my head. "Not yet. But I will find out." That night, I didn't sleep. Vanessa and I snuck into Margaret's study, where she usually kept her notebooks, client files, and small diaries. Vanessa trembled as she held the keys that Caroline secretly gave me. "Are you sure?" she asked. I nodded. I said, "If I have proof, I will leave here." We opened each drawer, looked through each notebook. Finally, in a purple leather book called Recipes and Notes, Vanessa discovered a small sheet of paper sandwiched between the recipe pages. It was a handwritten note. "She should double the dosage tonight. She needs to understand boundaries." I looked at Vanessa. She turned pale. These are my mother's words. Are you sure? She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. She intended to harm you. No, I whispered. She hurt me. 1 year later. I was sitting in the small kitchen of a community center in Asheville, North Carolina, far away from the Monroe mansion, from the glittering parties, and Margaret's cold gaze. Outside the window, bright red leaves fell in the autumn breeze, and inside, I had my first meeting with a new group of women, those who are learning how to stand up after a breakup. None of them knew that I was once the daughter-in-law of a prestigious Santa Barbara family. They only know me as Jessica, someone who has been betrayed, lived in the shadow of power, and is choosing to live again in a different way. A year ago, I thought the silence after the storm was the end. But I was wrong. It was just silence before a new life began. After leaving Monroe's house, David and I barely spoke for months. He needs time to understand who his mother is. I need time to remember who I am. Vanessa moved to Chicago and began studying psychotherapy, something I never thought she would do. We still call every week. We were no longer two rival women, but survivors bonded by a common truth that had nearly killed us both. I started rewriting my story, not for the press, but for myself. Each word is like a brick that rebuilds trust. I sent the manuscript to a small blog specializing in trauma recovery with no expectations. But unexpectedly, my article was shared thousands of times. Messages started pouring in. Thank you for writing what I never dared to say out loud. That's when I understood I'm not alone. One woman in today's group is named Sharon, 56 years old, divorced after 32 years of marriage. I don't know what to do with my life anymore, she said, her voice cracking like a shard of mirror. I've lived for my husband and children for so long, now I don't know who I am. I held her hand, my eyes steady. She is someone who is bravely starting over, and that's not something everyone can do. Many women shed tears, but not because of sadness, but because it was the first time they were truly seen by someone. After the conversation, someone came up and gave me a small piece of paper. I heard you had to deal with a very difficult mother-in-law. I'm living with someone like that. I nodded. You're not the only one, but you can be the first one who dares to change. That night, I sat in my apartment listening to the gentle sound of rain falling on the corrugated iron roof. I pulled out a small box from under the bed. Inside were letters I had never sent: letters to David, letters to Margaret, letters to my past self. I opened a letter with the following scribbled text to myself. If one day you are no longer afraid. I read it again and smiled. I've gone further than I ever thought I would. A message appeared on the phone. It's from David. I'm in Asheville. Can we meet? I hesitated. The old pain is still there, but no longer overwhelms my mind. I texted back, tomorrow, Pack Square Park, 10 a.m. He sat waiting for me on a wooden chair under the maple tree. When I approached, he stood up confused. You're still the same as before. Stronger, perhaps. I laugh. And you seem to have fallen asleep. He nodded. You were right, Mom. She doesn't know how to love in the normal way. She knows how to control, protect in a way that suffocates others. It took me so long to realize. You're not the only one, I said. Vanessa was like that too. He looked at me for a long moment, then asked, if I apologize, is it too late? I was silent. Not because of anger, but because my heart no longer needs an apology to be healed. I forgive you, I said, but I'm not coming back. He bowed his head. I understand. We sat next to each other for a while, like two old friends sharing memories. When he stood up to leave, I knew I had let go of the last thing that was holding me back. That night, I finished the last chapter of the book I was finishing, Women Don't Fall. I write about Sharon, about Vanessa, about myself. No one is a victim. We are survivors, tellers, helpers. And I understand one thing: sometimes betrayal doesn't come to break us, but to make us wonder, who are we when we're no longer someone else's? I'm Jessica Monroe. But from now on, I'm just Jessica. And that is enough. Thank you for following until the last moments of this story. If you have ever gone through a breakup, ever felt lost, or no longer believed in yourself, then know that you are not alone. There are women just like you who are slowly rebuilding themselves with courage, with tears, and with the love they deserve. Jessica's story is not just about betrayal, but about the journey to rediscovering self-worth after deep hurt. And if somewhere in this story you see yourself, it is not a coincidence. It's a reminder that you can start again. You can write the next chapter of your life the way you want. If you found this content touching your heart, please leave a comment. Please share this video with women you know who need strength. And don't forget to hit the like button on the video and subscribe to the channel, because we will have many more stories for those who are finding themselves. You deserve a fresh start, and that journey starts from this very place. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Okay.